The desert sun beat down on the grand palace as Sheikh Hamad walked through his gardens. At 53, his hair was turning gray at the temples, but his posture remained strong and commanding. His eyes, however, held a worry that his servants had noticed in recent months. He needed in hair, and time was running short. Inside the cool marble halls, Hamad's advisor waited with a folder of papers. "The arrangements are complete, Your Excellency. The girl's family has accepted your offer." Hamad nodded. He had seen only photos of Priya, a 22-year-old woman from a small village near Mumbai. Her family had fallen into debt after her father's business failed. The sum Hamad offered would not only clear their debts, but set them up comfortably for life. In exchange, he would get a young bride who would give him the son his first wife, Fatima, had failed to provide. "When will she arrive?" Hamad asked. "In 2 weeks' time. Everything is being prepared according to your instructions." In her room on the west wing of the palace, Fatima stood by the window. At 48, she had been Hamad's wife for nearly 20 years. She had given him her youth, her loyalty, but not a child. Now she watched as servants prepared the east wing rooms for the new bride. Her hands gripped the curtains tightly, knuckles white with tension. "Will you need anything else, madam?" Rania, her personal maid, asked from the doorway. "Information," Fatima replied without turning. "I want to know everything about this girl." In a small house in India, Priya sat quietly as her mother packed her belongings. There wasn't much. A few saris, some simple jewelry, photographs of her family. Her father stood in the doorway, unable to meet her eyes. "You will have a good life," her mother said, folding a scarf. "Better than anything we could give you here." Priya nodded. She had seen photos of Sheikh Hamad. He looked kind enough, but he was older than her father. The thought of sharing his bed made her stomach tighten with dread, but the alternative was watching her family lose everything. Her younger sisters would have no future if she refused. "I know math," she said softly. "I will make you proud." That night, Priya slipped out of the house and walked to the temple. The familiar smell of incense calmed her as she knelt before the shrine. "Give me strength," she whispered to the gods. "Help me be a good wife." A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to see her childhood friend, Raj. "So it's true," he said. "You're leaving." "I have to," Priya replied, "for my family." Raj's eyes flashed with anger. "You're being sold like cattle." "No," Priya said firmly. "I'm making a choice. The only choice I have." Back at the palace, Hamad met with his business manager, Ahmed. Unlike the other servants, Ahmed spoke to Hamad as an equal. They had known each other since they were young men. "The new bride is costing you a fortune," Ahmed remarked, reviewing the financial statements. "Between the bride price and the wedding preparations, it will be worth it," Hamad interrupted. "I need an heir, Ahmed. Without a son, everything I've built will be divided among my brother's children." Ahmed nodded, but his eyes held a calculating look. "And what about Fatima? How is she taking the news?" "She understands her place," Hamad said, though uncertainty flickered across his face. "She has always known this was a possibility." As darkness fell over both India and Dubai, Priya and Fatima looked up at the same stars, their minds filled with thoughts of the future. One woman prepared to leave everything she knew behind, while the other prepared to share what had been hers alone. Neither could guess the tragedy that would eventually connect them in ways they could never imagine. 2 weeks passed quickly. Priya arrived at Dubai International Airport with wide eyes and a racing heart. A man in a black suit held a sign with her name. He led her to a car with windows so dark she couldn't see inside until the door opened. Sheikh Hamad sat there, dressed in white. "Welcome to Dubai," he said in English. His voice was deeper than she expected. "I hope your journey was comfortable." Priya nodded, afraid to speak. Up close, the sheikh looked older than in his photos, the lines around his eyes deeper, but his smile seemed genuine. "You will have today to rest," he said. "Tomorrow, we will be married." The car drove through the city, past tall buildings that touched the sky. Finally, they reached a large gate that opened to reveal Hamad's estate. Priya had never seen such a big house. Gardens spread out on all sides and fountains shot water into the air. A group of women waited at the entrance. At the front stood Fatima, her face a perfect mask that showed nothing of her feelings. She wore jewels that sparkled in the sunlight. "This is Fatima," Hamad said. "She will show you to your rooms." Fatima stepped forward and took Praya's hand. Her grip was firm, her smile tight. "Come with me." As they walked through the house, Fatima pointed out rooms and explained rules. "The sheikh rises early. He expects quiet in the mornings. Dinner is at 8. You will join us tonight." Praya's room was bigger than her entire house in India. The bed had silk sheets, and the bathroom had gold taps. A closet stood open, already filled with clothes in her size. "These are for you," Fatima said. "Wear the blue dress tonight." She turned to leave, then paused. "You are very young." "I am 22, Praya said, finding her voice. Fatima laughed, but it held no joy. "I was 28 when I married him. I thought that was young." She left without another word. A maid named Zara helped Praya bathe and dress for dinner. The blue dress fit perfectly, but felt strange against her skin. Zara arranged Praya's long black hair in a style that made her look older. "You are beautiful," Zara said. "The sheikh will be pleased." Dinner was a quiet affair. Hamad asked polite questions about Praya's family and her journey. Fatima said little, but watched Praya closely. Ahmed, who joined them, spoke of business matters that Praya didn't understand. "Tomorrow will be busy," Hamad said as they finished eating. "Many people will come for the wedding." That night Praya couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony, looking at the gardens below. A man worked among the plants, even though it was late. He looked up and saw her. After a moment's hesitation, he bowed slightly. Praya nodded in return, then went back inside. The wedding day arrived with noise and activity. Women came to dress Praya in red and gold, to paint her hands with henna, to cover her in jewels. She felt like a doll being prepared for display. The ceremony was held in the garden. Hundreds of guests attended, important men in suits, women in fine dresses and traditional clothes. Praya didn't know any of them. She spoke her vows in a small voice, repeating words in Arabic that she didn't understand. Through it all, she felt eyes on her. Fatima watched from the side, her face still showing nothing. Stood near Hamad, smiling broadly but with eyes that calculated, and somewhere among the garden staff, the man from last night watched with a different kind of interest. When it was over, Praya was no longer the daughter of a failed businessman from Mumbai. She was the second wife of Sheikh Hamad, one of the richest men in Dubai. As guests congratulated them, Hamad kept his hand on her back, a gentle touch that still felt like ownership. "You have made me very happy," he told her. But Praya saw how his eyes drifted to Fatima, who stood alone now, and she wondered what kind of marriage this would truly be. A month passed. Praya learned the rhythms of her new life. She woke early, prayed, then ate breakfast alone in her room. Most days she saw Hamad only in the evenings. He was kind but distant, asking about her day though she had little to tell. Some nights he came to her bed, his touches gentle but businesslike. Other nights he spent with Fatima or alone. The large house felt like a beautiful prison. Guards stood at every gate. When Praya asked to visit the city, Hamad smiled and said, "Soon, when you are used to our ways." So she walked in the gardens instead, the only place she felt she could breathe freely. It was in the garden that she saw him again, the man who had bowed to her the night before her wedding. He was trimming roses, his movements careful and precise. "Those are beautiful," Praya said, stopping a few feet away. He looked up, surprised she had spoken to him. "Thank you, madam. They are the sheikh's favorite." "What is your name?" she asked. "Ali," he said after a slight pause. "I take care of the East Gardens." "I'm Praya," she said, though he surely knew who she was. "Yes, madam." He bowed his head again. "Please, just Praya." She touched a red rose petal. "In India we have gardens too, but different flowers. I miss them." Ali's face softened. "Perhaps I could plant some Indian flowers in this corner. The sheikh allows me some freedom with the designs." "Would you?" Praya smiled, her first real smile since arriving. From then on, Praya visited the garden daily. Ali told her the names of plants and taught her how to care for them. He was from Lebanon, but had worked for Sheikh Hamad for 5 years. He spoke of his mother and sisters with warmth that made Praya think of her own family. One morning, Praya woke feeling sick. Her breakfast tray arrived with Rania, Fatima's maid, instead of her usual servant. "The mistress asked me to check on you," Rania said, watching as Praya rushed to the bathroom. When Praya returned, pale and weak, Rania nodded knowingly. I will tell her. That evening both Hamad and Fatima came to her room. Fatima placed a hand on Praya's forehead, then lowered it to her stomach. She is with child, Fatima announced, her voice flat. Hamad's face lit up. He took Praya's hand and kissed it. You have brought blessing to this house. Fatima's expression remained cold. I will arrange for a doctor tomorrow. She left without another word. Hamad stayed, talking excitedly of the future of his son. He seemed certain it would be a boy. For the first time, he spoke to Praya as if she mattered. But things changed after that. Praya's food sometimes tasted strange, and twice she found her bedroom door locked from the outside. Small items went missing, her hairbrush, a letter from her mother, her favorite earrings. One day she found a dead bird outside her window, its neck broken. When she asked Zara about it, the maid looked frightened and quickly removed it without comment. In the garden, Alain noticed her worry. You seem troubled, he said quietly, digging a hole for a jasmine plant he had found specially for her. Strange things are happening, Praya confessed. I feel watched all the time. Alain glanced around to make sure they were alone. The first wife has eyes everywhere. Be careful what you eat and drink. Fatima? You think she would harm me? Or the child, Alain said. There are many who do not wish to see the sheikh have an heir. That night Praya lay awake, her hand on her stomach, listening to sounds outside her door. Someone was there, breathing quietly, waiting. After what seemed like hours, the footsteps moved away. In the morning, she found a small pouch of black powder mixed into her tea. When she poured it out, the liquid turned a strange color. With shaking hands, Praya emptied the cup into a plant, which withered before her eyes. Praya's fear grew with each passing day. She told Hamad about the powder in her tea, but he dismissed it as a mistake by the kitchen staff. Still, he'd assigned a food taster to her meals, which only made Fatima's eyes narrow with greater dislike. 3 months into her pregnancy, Praya's stomach began to show. The doctor who visited weekly said everything looked normal, but advised rest and caution. Hamad became more protective, limiting her movement to certain parts of the house. Even her garden visits were restricted to 1 hour each day, with a guard watching from a distance. During those precious garden hours, Ali continued to create a small corner of India for her. Jasmine, marigolds, and lotus now grew in a special bed. Their scent reminded Praya of home and gave her strength. You must be more careful, Ali whispered one day while trimming a bush near her bench. Ahmed has been asking about you, about our talks. Ahmed? Praya was surprised. Why would he care? He cares about everything in this house, Ali said, especially things that affect the sheikh's money. Praya frowned. How would I affect his money? Your child will be heir to everything. Ali's hands kept working as he spoke. That means a great deal of power for you if it's a boy. And Ahmed has been managing the sheikh's wealth for many years. Perhaps he likes that power for himself. That night Praya watched Ahmed during dinner. He smiled often and spoke highly of the sheikh's new business deals, but his eyes were cold when they landed on her. Later, unable to sleep, Praya wandered to her sitting room and noticed papers on the floor near the door, as if they had been slipped under but not fully. She picked them up and found financial records showing large sums of money moving from the sheikh's accounts to unknown destinations. She didn't understand all the numbers, but she could tell something wasn't right. A noise in the hallway made her quickly hide the papers under her pillow. The next morning she went looking for Ali, hoping he might help her understand what she had found, but he wasn't in the garden. Another worker said he hadn't come in that day. Worried, Praya asked Zara about him. The maid looked around nervously before answering. He was taken away last night. Some men came for him. Was he arrested? What happened? Praya's voice rose in panic. Shat, not so loud. Zara glanced at the door. It was Ahmed's men. They said Ali was stealing, but she trailed off, clearly afraid to say more. That afternoon, Fatima came to Praya's room, surprising her. Without greeting, she closed the door and checked the bathroom and closets, as if looking for listeners. We need to talk, Fatima said quietly. I know we are not friends. I have not been kind to you. Praya remained silent, unsure what to expect. But there are things happening in this house that concern us both. Fatima sat down, her usual perfect posture slightly bent with worry. Hamad is not well. Have you noticed? He tires easily, has headaches. He mentioned feeling unwell last week, Preya admitted. For months now, he's been getting worse. The doctors can't find the cause. Fatima leaned closer. Last night I saw Ahmed put something in Hamad's drink. Preya's hand went to her stomach protectively. Do you think? I don't know what to think, Fatima interrupted. But your friend, the gardener, was asking questions about Hamad's health. Now he's gone. Ali wouldn't hurt anyone, Preya said firmly. Fatima's eyes narrowed. Perhaps not. But Ahmed has much to gain if Hamad dies before your child is born. She stood up. Watch your food, your drinks. Trust no one. She walked to the door, then turned back. Not even me. After Fatima left, Preya pulled out the financial papers from under her pillow. With new eyes, she began to see what they might mean. Someone was stealing from Sheikh Hamad, and that same someone might now be slowly killing him. The next day, Preya decided to look for evidence. While everyone attended afternoon prayers, she slipped into Ahmed's office. Her heart beat fast as she searched through his desk, careful not to disturb anything too obviously. In a locked drawer, which she opened with a hairpin like she had seen in movies, she found a small bottle with no label. She took a photo of it with her phone, then put it back exactly as she had found it. As she turned to leave, a folder caught her eye. Inside were medical reports, Sheikh Hamad's medical reports. Words like unexplained symptoms and possible toxicity jumped out at her. Most shocking was a private note from the doctor. At this rate of decline, patient has 6 to 8 months. Preya's hands shook. Hamad was dying, and no one had told her. Had they even told him? She quickly put everything back and left the room. That night during dinner she watched Hamad closely. He did look paler than when she first arrived, and he ate little. Ahmed sat beside him, attentive as always, refilling Hamad's special tea whenever the cup was empty. My head pains me again, Hamad said, rubbing his temple. The doctor said these headaches will pass, Your Excellency, Ahmed replied smoothly. Just drink your medicine tea. Preya caught Fatima's eye across the table. Something silent passed between them. After dinner, they met in the hallway. Did you see? Fatima whispered. The tea, Preya nodded. I found something in Ahmed's office today. Medical reports. Hamad is very sick. Fatima's face tightened. I feared as much. We must get that tea tested. How? Preya asked. Leave it to me, but be careful. Ahmed watches everything. The next morning, Preya received a message from an unknown number on her phone. Garden shed. Noon. She recognized Ali's writing style immediately and hope filled her heart. He was alive. At noon, she made her way to the small shed at the far end of the garden. The door was unlocked. Inside, Ali stood in the shadows, a bruise darkening one side of his face. Ali, what happened? Are you okay? Preya wanted to hug him but held back. They questioned me about you, about what we talked about, he said quickly. I told them nothing important. But Preya, I found something while working in Ahmed's private garden. He pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of plants. These are not decorative. They're poisonous when processed correctly. Slow-acting poisons that cause symptoms like the Sheikh has been having. You think Ahmed is poisoning Hamad? Preya said. It wasn't a question. I know he is, and I think I know why. Ali looked around nervously. Ahmed has been moving money for years. Millions. I found bank statements hidden in his garden shed. He's been stealing from the Sheikh. But why poison him now? Preya asked. Because of you, Ali said. Or rather, because of your child. Once your baby is born, there will be an audit of all accounts for the Heirs Trust Fund. Ahmed's theft would be discovered. Everything suddenly made sense to Preya. So he's killing Hamad slowly, hoping to finish before the baby comes, and then he'll run with the money. Yes. And I don't think he plans to leave you or your child alive as witnesses, Ali warned. We need to tell someone, get help. Who can we trust? Preya asked. The guards work for Ahmed. The servants fear him. Fatima, Ali suggested. She has her own power in this house, and she loves the Sheikh in her way. Yes, I think she suspects already. We'll talk to her tonight. Preya turned to leave, then paused. Be careful, Ali. Don't let Ahmed find you again. As she walked back to the house, Preya didn't notice Rania watching from an upstairs window, phone in hand as she reported to Ahmed about the meeting in the garden shed. That evening, Preya tried to find Fatima, but the first wife was nowhere to be seen. Zara said she had gone out unexpectedly. Worried, Priya returned to her room and locked the door. She hid the photos from Ahmed's office and the pictures Ali had shown her inside a hollowed-out book. Around midnight she heard footsteps in the hallway, then a soft knock. She froze, afraid to answer. "Priya, it's me." Fatima's voice came through the door. "Let me in quickly." Priya opened the door. Fatima rushed in, her usual calm completely gone. Her hijab was askew, and she carried a small bag. "We don't have much time," she said. "Ahmed knows something. He's called a doctor to examine Hamad tonight, a new doctor. I think he's going to blame the poisoning on you." "What? How could he?" "Your Indian herbs in the garden," Fatima cut her off. "He will say you used them to poison the sheikh's food. They are searching the kitchen now for evidence." Priya felt sick. "We need to tell Hamad the truth, show him the evidence." "Hamad is too weak now," Fatima said, "and he trusts Ahmed completely. He would never believe us without solid proof." She pulled something from her bag, a small vial. "I had the tea tested by a private lab. It contains arsenic, small amounts that build up over time." A loud crash from somewhere in the house made them both jump. "What was that?" Priya whispered. Fatima moved to the window and looked out. Ahmed's men. There at the garden shed. Her face went pale. "Your friend Ali." Priya rushed to the window. In the distance, she could see flashlights moving around the garden shed, men shouting. A moment later, they dragged someone out, Ali, struggling against them. "We have to help him," Priya cried. "There's nothing we can do for him now," Fatima said grimly. "We must protect ourselves and Hamad." They turned as the bedroom door burst open. Stood there with two guards, his face twisted with anger. "Arrest them both," he ordered. "The Indian girl has been poisoning our sheikh, and Fatima has been helping her." The guards hesitated, looking at Fatima with uncertainty. She had been their mistress for many years. "This is madness, Ahmed," Fatima said coldly. "You are the poisoner. We have proof." "Proof?" Ahmed laughed. "What I have is the testimony of the sheikh's personal doctor that this girl has been adding toxic herbs to his food. I have witnesses who saw her meeting with that gardener who was stealing chemicals from my supplies." "That's a lie," Priya shouted. Ahmed pulled out his phone and showed them a photo. Priya and Ali in the garden shed, his hand holding out the pictures of the poisonous plants. From this angle, it looked like he was giving her something, not showing her evidence. "The sheikh is very disappointed in you, Priya," Ahmed said with false sadness. "He had such hopes for you and your child." "Where is Hamad?" Fatima demanded. "I need to speak with him. He is resting. The doctor has given him medicine for the poison this girl has been feeding him." Ahmed nodded to the guards. "Take them to the West Wing rooms and lock them in. The police will come in the morning." As the guards led them away, Priya saw Rania watching from the hallway, a small smile on her face. They were locked in a guest room with a guard outside. Fatima paced while Priya sat on the bed, hands on her growing stomach. "He's going to kill Hamad tonight," Fatima said quietly. "With everyone believing we are the guilty ones, he'll give Hamad a final dose that will end it." "What can we do?" Priya asked, her voice shaking. Fatima pulled a phone from inside her clothes. "They didn't search me properly. I'm still the first wife." She dialed a number. "My brother is in the Royal Police, if I can reach him in time." But before she could finish the call, they heard a commotion downstairs, shouts, running footsteps, and then a woman's scream that echoed through the entire house. The guard outside their door ran toward the noise. Fatima quickly tried the door handle. It was unlocked. They hurried into the hallway and down the stairs. The screams had come from Hamad's bedroom. They rushed in to find a scene of chaos. Sheikh Hamad lay on his bed, eyes open but not moving. A doctor was checking his pulse with a panicked expression. Zara stood in the corner, hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face, and on the floor lay Ahmed, a small glass cup shattered beside him, liquid spreading across the marble. "What happened?" Fatima demanded, rushing to Hamad's side. "The sheikh is dead," the doctor said, his voice shaking, "and this man collapsed after drinking from the sheikh's cup." Priya looked at the scene, trying to understand. "Who screamed?" "I did," Zara said softly. "I brought the evening tea as usual, but the sheikh asked Ahmed to taste it first because he was feeling suspicious. Ahmed tried to refuse, but the sheikh insisted. When Ahmed took a sip, he fell immediately. The sheikh was so shocked that he clutched his chest, and she couldn't finish. Fatima sat beside her husband's body, her face blank with shock. "Heart attack," she whispered. The stress was too much for his weakened body. Police arrived within minutes. Rania tried to tell them about Priya and Fatima's plot, but Ali, who had managed to escape during the commotion, appeared with the evidence from the garden shed and Ahmed's office. The test results for the poison tea that Fatima had ordered were also brought forward. As the police led away Ahmed's unconscious form and Rania in handcuffs, a senior officer explained what they had pieced together. Ahmed has been stealing from the sheikh for years. When Priya became pregnant, he knew his theft would be discovered once the baby triggered a financial review. He began slowly poisoning the sheikh, planning to finish him off and escape with the money before the child was born. "But why did he drink the poisoned tea tonight?" Priya asked. "He had no choice," Ali explained, his face bruised but his eyes clear. The sheikh was suspicious enough to demand Ahmed taste it first. Ahmed knew refusing would confirm his guilt. "He gambled that a small sip wouldn't kill him," the officer added. He was wrong. In the days that followed, more evidence of Ahmed's crimes came to light. The police found millions hidden in overseas accounts. They also discovered that Ahmed had planned to frame Priya for the murder, with help from Rania, who had always been loyal to him rather than to Fatima. A month later, Priya sat in the garden, her hand on her growing stomach. The house was quieter now. Many servants had left, unable to face the scandal. Ali worked nearby, planting new flowers to replace the ones Ahmed had destroyed. Fatima approached, dressed in black as she had been since Hamad's death. "The lawyers have finished reviewing the will," she said, sitting beside Priya. "Hamad left everything to the child, with us as guardians until the baby reaches adulthood." "I don't care about the money," Priya said. "I just want my baby to be safe." Fatima's hand hesitantly reached out to touch Priya's. "We will protect this child together. It is what Hamad would have wanted." 2 months later, Priya gave birth to a boy. They named him Hamad after his father. As was tradition, the baby was presented to important family members and friends. Fatima held him first, then handed him to Priya with unexpected gentleness. Ali watched from the doorway, a small smile on his face. Life in the house had found a new balance. The tragedy that had brought them together had also created an unusual family bonded by shared grief and hope for the future. 1 year later, Priya stood in the garden with little Hamad in her arms. Ali worked nearby, now the head gardener. Fatima approached with business papers needing Priya's signature. "The trust is secure," Fatima said. "Ahmed's stolen money has been recovered." Priya nodded. "Thank you. For everything." The 2 women looked at each other with the understanding that comes from surviving something terrible together. Not friends exactly, but family now, united in their love for the child who represented both their past tragedy and their future hope.